Welcome to the Comic Lounge. Today I got a special guest for you guys. I've talked about my love of comics, but I'm also here to talk about my love of hip-hop. Today I got a special guest. I have Eli from Living Legends G&E, Three Melancholy Gypsies. Welcome, Eli.
Thank you, man. Thanks for having me, bro.
Yeah. So before our, the technical difficulty I just had, I asked you to just give us a brief rundown of who you are, maybe for some of the people that aren't familiar with your stuff.
Sure, man. Well, I am an underground hip hop artist, producer. At this point, I call myself a scorer of films, although that's more like a projection into what I want next in life. It's kind of that thing where you just kind of say it until it's real. But I've been making underground shit since I was 16, 17 years old. And for me, the path really began when school no longer interested me because all I wanted to do was write, make beats, make music. That's all I wanted to do. I could not sit in a classroom and pay attention for any amount of time because all I wanted to do was that. So I ended up leaving school. My mom told me to get a job. I tried sort of half-assedly, didn't get a job, turned 17, she kicked me out. Ended up in the Bay Area, ended up meeting up with a bunch of other kids at that time that were in the same mindset as me, and we became a crew called Living Legends, 8 of us. And I've made tons of music as a solo artist and with Living Legends as a crew, and then the mini groups within the group. Kind of, if you're not familiar, it's more like a Wu-Tang style, if I can compare it to something, just with the amount of people in the group and the amount of subgroups within the group. So I've been doing that now. It's been 25 years since I put out my first album, 2023, something like that. Something crazy, dude. I'm like, what? Yeah. So, and at this point, in about 2005, I had reached a point where my using drugs and all of the above had taken over my life, and I decided to get clean. And I've been a participant in Narcotics Anonymous and recovery for, I'll be, God willing, 15 years clean in October. So for the last 15 years, music has even taken on another meaning for me. More than meaning, it's just become a high in itself, and it's become something that has, to me, it's been the best of my career. And at this point, I feel like I'm making the best shit I've ever made. It feels good, man. And as far as the other side of me is the visual art side. I'm an artist. I draw. Pens, pencils, markers are my medium. Like, I've been painting lately, like messing with paint, but I'm still such a baby at that with a brush that I couldn't even claim to be a painter, even though anybody is an artist if they decide to make art, to me. So in the last, how many years? I would say the last 7 years, six, 7 years, a friend of mine told me, hey, you should start drawing tattoo designs for some of your fans of your music, and it could become a really good business for you. I'm like, really? Like, that's a great idea, actually. And so I started drawing for people, and that became a whole nother business for me. So I've been making art for people that went from just like simple tattoo designs to like full framed pieces on the wall.
Yeah.
That take me a month to finish, because I've gone from pieces that are like yay big to this big to now I'm doing like 3 pieces that go together that are like huge, and it takes me a month, 2 months to make. And it's good to have all aspects of art alive in what I do on a daily basis. So that's kind of a really condensed version of me and what I do. But yeah, man, I mean, producing is still, if I could say there was one thing that I would miss the most on this planet, producing, making beats, that is my number one passion. Number one. The first thing I ever started doing, though, was drawing as a kid. Drawing was my number one love in the beginning. So, and that's still very much alive in me. And the more I do it, the better I get at it. It's just like the practice of any art, I think.
Yeah. So I'm probably going to jump around, just a heads up, because you've touched on stuff that I was going to ask later. So I will come back to it. Real quick though, I do want to say your art is dope as fuck. My lady, she embarrassed the shit out of me when she went up to you at the restaurant. She's like, oh, my husband, da da da. So then when you came when I used to work at the Humblebee.
That's right, dude. I always forget that was you, man.
Yeah, it's all good, dude. I don't trip. But yeah, so like she's not really into hip hop, you know. So like I told her I was interviewing you, and I was like, you know, he's a dope fucking artist too, right? And I started showing her the stuff because she paints animals, and you fucking paint a lot of animals, dude. And dope like that lion. I showed her that lion with the butterfly, dude. She about tripped out. You know what I mean? She's
Dude,
like, I had no idea.
I'm drawing a lion right now, and
Sick.
it's the biggest lion I've ever drawn. If you look at if anyone checks out my drawings, I'm very detail oriented. So like showing a picture online, like when I'm trying to advertise what I'm doing or say, hey, check this piece I did, dude, it's nothing like when you see it in person.
Oh yeah, for sure.
I just can't reproduce it in a photo. But this one is crazy, bro. Like the lion's mane is so detailed. The way I do hair is like multiple layers, and like I gotta show you, bro. It's not even anywhere near that. Let me see it. And there's no way you'll be able to really see what I'm talking about.
But holy shit!
This is this lion, and you can see how big he is compared to my body. But if you can see the detail in the hair at all, it's too hard. You can't even see.
Oh my god! No, I saw that detail. And holy shit! The intricacies in the pattern that you did in the hair.
Right, and as you can see, the top part of his hair is done. The sides and bottom, I'm nowhere near. It takes a long time for me to finish these.
Dude, that's sick. I can only imagine what that costs.
Yeah, well, this particular one is going to be the lion and then a piece above him and a piece below. So I'm estimating it'll be like 4 G's. And you know, the value of my art comes from time and detail and time spent, but also that my value is just as an artist. And, you know, I've worked for 20 years to be just where I'm at. And I'm not even satisfied where I'm at. I often will beat myself up like, man, I should be further along, or why don't I have what this guy has, or why don't I have what they have? And it's always a battle to bring myself back to center and be like, dude, I'm so grateful for the fans that I do have. And I'm so grateful that I'm able to make a piece like that and have somebody interested in paying me that amount of money, because there's so many ridiculous, talented artists on all levels that would die to be where I'm at.
It's funny you say that. Like I live with an artist, you know, so everything you're saying, I hear come out of her mouth on a daily basis. She'll ask me like, do you think it's good? I'm like, yes, I told you it's fucking dope, dude. Like your shit is awesome. And she's like, you know, like, so like she constantly wants me to like reassure her, even though she knows she's great. Yeah, I think it's probably a little bit, not just human nature, but, you know, addict mentality too. You know what I'm saying? Like, cause she's also in recovery. So like, we're both in it together. And I think that plays a huge part. But yeah, I think you're awesome, dude. I love your fucking work. And every time I see a new piece, I'm like, and now that I know you're doing tattoos, gonna have you design something probably to go with this Kobe tattoo I have on my forearm.
Oh, sick. Yeah, of course.
Yeah. But yeah, so just to kind of qualify me, I just got to get this question out. Were you into comics at all? You say you were drawing when you were a kid. Were you into them at all as a little kid?
You know, I can't say that, knowing just by the feeling you're giving me, you were totally into comics.
Yeah.
I have friends that had huge collections, but I wasn't, dude. I wasn't a comic book kid, and you would think I was. I had a few graphic novels back in the day when I was young that really did influence the style of drawing that I love. And they were it was a Batman graphic novel. And the way the Joker and Batman were drawn in that particular, it was somebody that drew them in such a specific way. It was like almost messy and sharp and like, oh, it was so sick.
I wonder if it was Arkham Asylum.
Nope, it wasn't.
Was it Dark Knight Returns?
Yeah, it was Dark Knight Returns.
Okay, Frank Miller. Okay.
Yes, that's who it was.
Yeah.
And it's like, that's how you know I'm not a comic book person, because
it's all good.
He is a fucking legend and an OG. But the way he used to draw caught me so much that I used to try and copy his style. So there was like huge pictures of the Joker in that novel, and I would try and draw Joker the way he drew him, and so I was heavily influenced by the couple graphic novels that I had, but I was not a comic book dude. Like I used to have these books that my dad maybe bought me on how to draw like that,
Uh-huh.
but the actual comic books, I didn't have a big collection, so I can't claim that. Although I've always had a love for that art, that style.
Yeah, I mean, I had to ask because I know, like, because for me, like I think they go hand in hand. And if you look at the history of both, you can make the connections going back to the birth of hip hop. You know, I did a whole week of posts on my site because me and a couple of the other guys are huge hip hop heads. I mean, my boy Dylan, that's how we became friends in high school. Was we were both in continuation school because we were both fucking up, you know, when we were younger, and we literally sat there all day with headphones, like one in each ear, talking about comics and listening to hip hop. You know, like
Right.
that's all we did. So like, and all the research I've done, you know, Marvel even a couple of years ago did a series of covers homaging classic albums.
Yeah.
You know, so I just thought, you know, had to ask, you know, just to kind of get that out of the way, dude. But it's cool that you did have. I mean, that's a classic Batman story, so that's cool that it had a little bit of an influence on you.
Yeah, and I don't remember who, somebody gave it to me, and I was like, as a gift, and I was obsessed with it. I
Yeah.
was also obsessed. I tried to find this book, uh, and I tried to Google this book that I had when I was young about. It was a graffiti book, and had a bunch of dope pieces from New York in the book, and I was super influenced by graffiti
Mm-hmm.
style. And to me, graffiti, comics, and hip hop all go hand in hand as well. Like I have, you know, like my buddy Merce, Living Legends, Merce, and he's a comic book fiend. He's still a big guy, a comic guy. He goes to Comic Con. He does all that stuff. So I absolutely agree with you. They go hand in hand. And then you had the hip hop covers over the years that have been actual comic book art. You had Outkast, you had Jizza, you had all these different album covers that look like straight comic book covers. You know?
Yeah, that's funny you mentioned Jizza's album art. I just interviewed Dennis Cowan. He's the one that did the Liquid Swords cover art. Yeah, so let's jump now to the beginning. You said you got into hip hop at a super young age.
Yes.
Into the game even, not even just like, I'm not talking about like into the genre of it,
Right.
but how did you first fall in love with hip hop? What was some of the first albums, some first MCs that really inspired you when you were younger?
Well, the first guy that was like a superhero to me was LL Cool J. I'm Bad album. That was the first tape that I begged my mom to buy me. I was like, can it was the first time I was like, can we go to the store? I want to get this tape. You know what I mean? And I must have been, seven. I was eight or nine probably. So first, second, third, somewhere around there, grade. I don't know anymore what 8 or 9 year olds, what grade they're in. But I was that was it. Like once I got a hold of that, it was just going down the line. Oh, and I started discovering all these people. Next, that in my mind is BDP, KRS One, NWA, Ice Cube, Easy E's tape was huge. Easy does it, man.
Mm-hmm.
And I remember my mom was very open to allowing me to listen to anything I wanted to. Didn't matter the content. I remember buying Easy Does It, and she said, "Put it in." When we got in the car, and I was like, and I put it in, and the first song is like, "Easily I approach the microphone because ain't no joke. Tell your mama to get off of my tip. I have no time to give her my dick." Psycho. She's like, "Cling!" Ejected it. And she didn't take me back to the store and make me give it back. She said, "Listen to this shit in your own room. I don't want to hear this shit." Because she was my mom was sort of a feminist mom. So she was like, "Nope." But she also allowed me to listen to it. The mistake I made that got her in trouble was lending my Eazy-E tape to a friend down the street and having that mom come to our door and yell at my mom. Like, "I don't give a shit what you let your son listen to, but don't let him, my son doesn't listen to this garbage. Blah, 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 blah." And I was like, "Sorry, mom." But dude, yeah. So then it's just everything from that time. I never stopped. I never stopped from 1988, whenever I'm Bad came out, or 87 on. I was just addicted.
Yeah, I think some of the first ones that I liked I had a similar experience when I was listening to a Tupac
Tupac.
album when I was a kid. I think my mom was not about that at all, which I don't blame her. That's not her. That's not her style. And then when I was really little was Will Smith. Because I love Fresh Prince of Bel Air, so I'm not gonna sit here and bullshit. I think his Big Willie style was one of my first like CDs
That's
or cassettes when I was a
hilarious.
kid.
I'm not mad at you because parents just don't understand that album was huge and I loved it. I fucking loved that album. Nightmare on My Street, all these songs. Because I was a kid then. I was like, it was perfect for me.
Hmm.
And but once I grew up, past parents just don't understand. I was like, man, get Will Smith away from me. I love the show. I
Yeah,
still binge. I've been binging since quarantine, bro. I've been binge watching Fresh Prince of Bel Air. Like,
I love
I
that show.
still love that show, dude. And I love Will Smith. I follow him on Instagram. I just like the dude. I think he's an amazing dude, man.
Hmm.
And but his music after Parents, just I couldn't fuck with him at all. I was like,
Yeah,
you're too corny, bro. I can't. But everything else he did, I'm all in. I love that guy, man.
yeah.
So it's just funny that a different generation and you were affected by him with Big Willie style, which makes me laugh. The name of that album, bro.
I know.
Oh, okay.
So we're saying you were young. When did you drop your first record, or when did you make it? Because you self-produced it, right?
Yes. Well, previous to my first underground album was Log Cabin. So that was like before I even went to the Bay. I was 15, 16, rapping and recording with another big group of dudes in LA, including Merce, Scarab, and a bunch of guys that were older than us. And we made this almost mythical album together, and then totally disbanded after that, and everybody kind of left. And we performed one show together in Santa Monica, and never did another show. Never put the album out. It just was out. Like there's just terrible hissy versions of it everywhere. The guy that owned the studio where we recorded it, still to this day, I believe, is holding that hostage. Like we would have to probably hit him up and be like, dude, how much? You know what I mean? But it's just like, nah, so fucking let it lie where it lies. So after that, moved to the Bay, met up with the Legends, ended up sleeping in Grouch's mom's basement of her house. And he had all the equipment. He had an ASR 10 sampler, which he taught me how to use. He had a 4-track mic, all that shit. So there in that basement, whenever Grouch wasn't using his equipment, Grouch had a job at that time. He was like delivering pizzas, dude. Like, and I did not have a job. So I was like eating his leftover scraps and whatever. I was like a little fucking stray dog, dude. I was in his basement. He would leave to go work and I would make songs. I remember that's how my flow started. I would make a beat, record it to the 4-track, write, rap it, record that, and move to the next. And I would do like 2 or 3 songs in a day sometimes. I had to take advantage of when he was gone. You know what I mean?
Right.
When he wasn't using his equipment. So it was 96. I was 18 or about to turn 18. And As They Pass came out. I mean, dude, we literally made our stuff, our own tapes from scratch. Somebody had a dub machine. You would sit there, dub one at a time. We'd buy stickers and blank tapes, and I drew a cover and took it to Kinko's and just printed them out, cut them out, folded them up, wrote on each sticker. I wrote out track listing, like a little tiny writing, song 1, 2, 3, 4, and then try and go sell them on the street, which I was just following in Mystic Journeyman's footsteps with my older brothers in the group. And I was super shy and didn't like to, they were boisterous, loud, like, hey, tapes, hey, and people would buy shit from them. Me, I'm just like, I didn't sell very many tapes until Amoeba Berkeley started buying tapes from us. And that's how it really started, my whole story. But yeah, it was 96, dude.
Damn, dude. I can't even imagine what the hip hop scene was like back then in the underground. Because like I'm a little late to the Legends and stuff, But man, fuck. Once my boy he showed me some music, dude. I was scrounging to get up everything I could find, and it's hard to find it in stores, So like that's why I sent my mom. You had one of those trunk sales. I was working that day. Like, please. Go get me the Sideways Days album. I need that. Like I've been wanting that for years, dude.
Right.
So you were always drawing then, because you drew all your cover art. That's all
Yeah,
you, right? Every album.
yeah. Every album that had art on the cover, I drew. Trying to think if that's a lie. No, I think that's true.
Your solo stuff is all you.
Yes,
Yeah.
yes.
And then, so who were like, because the graph influence is evident, just the way you wrote your name on them, everything on
Oh,
there.
right. Yeah.
Was there any graph artists that you like? Was there a graffiti scene in the Bay at that time that you were really into, or any artists that you followed, or was it just like from that book that you were talking about that kind of always kept that
Well,
influence?
from junior high, dude, I went to school in 32nd Street, USC Magnet School. It was in the middle of South Central. It was full of kids that were tagging and gang banging and fucking. I especially learned to I love tagging on shit. I like writing fucking on everything. And I learned the continuous kind of style where you don't stop writing. Like I fell in love with that from the beginning. So I always loved that. And even the way I write my name was a reflection of that, just the non-stop kind of
Right.
sign of your name. But I didn't have like a particular graph artist that I identified or really followed until the Bay Area. There was a huge graffiti scene, and after I was staying in the basement with Grouch at his mom's house, we ended up moving into that what we called the outhouse, this giant warehouse in the middle of East Oakland, in this huge building with a bunch of other warehouses um, that people lived in. And down the hall was my boy Corey Shaw, who's a artist in his own right. He was a graffiti artist, heavily influenced by it. And he was a graphic designer, and his roommate was Doze One, who's a super OG
Yeah.
graffiti artist with a sick ass style that's very unique. So I was like super into his shit at that time, for sure.
So can you talk a little bit, because I want to talk about recovery, because I think one of the most amazing things about you is that you're very open about your past. I think it's huge for any other people that are in the music scene to see somebody that continues to stay clean and sober in this industry, which I know is very prevalent. There's alcohol and there's drugs. I mean, I didn't really feel the same way in the restaurant business, but in the restaurant business too, there's people that, it's a little
Sure.
prevalent. You know what I'm saying? So I was wondering if you could talk about that time between As They Pass and then went to the point where you got sober, and then leading into your decision to get sober, and how you've been able to maintain it in this industry, especially where it's so prevalent.
Sure. Well, I mean, to put it simply, I never tried a drug I didn't like, number one. In
I,
the very beginning, I was smoking weed more before I really drank. And the alcohol came into play once I realized that my nerves before a show were quelled by drinking this beer or this fucking Long Island iced tea. All of a sudden, I don't give a shit and I'm ready
Mhm.
to rock. That was a problem from the beginning, because then I started drinking so I can perform, right? And not be so nervous. So alcohol became prevalent 97, 98. It started. I've smoked weed for ever since the first time I made a beat, I was smoking weed. So I was smoking weed and drinking, and then oh, let's do these mushrooms. Oh, let's try acid. And I like the hallucinogens, but they didn't grab me, but I still did them when everybody else did them. Then ecstasy came in. That was the first like synthetic drug that I tried, and I was fucking amazed by it. I thought it was incredible. And then I did a little too much of that. And then I started not liking ecstasy. I'm like, that's not it either. And then eventually, um, around 2000, after Gas Dream was out and I was about to start working on Poltergeist, a buddy came over. He had broken his arm. He had a bottle of Vicodin. They were just drove up from the Bay. They were drinking beers. And he was like, dude, you need to try one of these Vicodin with a beer, dude. It's crazy. I'm like, what? What is that? I'm like, all right. Chewed it up, drank a beer. And I tell the story because I'll never forget it. Like, I had all these dudes. I went in the other room. I was making a beat on the MPC. I, I got up. I went in the living room. Everybody's passed out. They're all drinking and popping pills. Passed out.
Mhm.
I went and shook my friend. I'm like, hey. Give me another one of those, man. Let's see. 2 hours later. And once then, you just knew. Now, that's when I was like, this is what I like. I like this shit. And then it was just, woo, it was a pretty slow but fast downhill from there. Once I hit the opiates, man, I went all the way up the ladder pretty quick. Like when I think about it, from 2001 to 2005, when I got clean, I was just like, okay, Percocet, okay, what's next? Go up, 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 and then Oxy, and then fuck, then I'm snorting China White. In the end, I never shot dope, but I snorted it, smoked it, did whatever else there was, right?
Yeah.
And besides that, I was doing, if you didn't have that, you had Coke, give me that. Let me chew Coke. And Coke used to just turn me into just the opposite of me, like totally turn me inside out. And then I remember smoking meth for 3 days and being like, looking in the mirror and being like, what the fuck am I doing? What is wrong? What is this? Just done, but didn't know how to be done. So 2005, it just came to a head. I wasn't making music. I'd wake up every day sick. I moved in with a friend, Scarab. I moved in with him because he was clean and he lifted weights. He ran. He was doing all the healthy shit. And I figured if I move in with him, I won't use anymore. I'll start getting healthy. Can't run away from yourself, man, no matter where you are. So what happened? I ended up just waking up and leaving his house immediately to get away from him. Go find the dealer, follow him around all day till he had something for me. You know what I mean? And it was a sick relationship. He was a fan of mine. So he liked me hanging out with him just because he was a fan. And I hung out with him to get dope. Like, we were miserable together, man. And so 2005, I woke up one morning and I knew a friend had recently got into a rehab through a foundation that helped him pay for it. And I was like, what is this foundation? Called my buddy. I was like, dude, can you help me get into rehab? He's like, I'll call you back. And that was it, dude. I had a call back from this rehab maybe an hour later. And they're like, you want a bed? Because we have one now if you come to the Valley, which is only 30 minutes from where I was, or 20. And that was it, dude. I walked into that rehab high as a motherfucker, woke up the next day, haven't used since. And since I got clean, like I said, music has taken on a whole different meaning. I've never been shy about talking about what's going on with me, like you said. And it's funny because in the beginning, I spoke a lot about my recovery. If you were in the program or in a 12-step program and you heard some of my songs, you'd be like, oh, you'd be catching phrases, you hear shit, be like, oh, he's in recovery. At this point in 2020, almost 15 years clean, I don't feel like I need to, it's different, dude. I'm not talking about it in the same way because at some point you're playing it out and you're living in this circle that is only a piece of me. You know what I mean? Recovery is the foundation of me being where I'm at. I'm never going to forget that. And I will never stop going to meetings and having a sponsor, God willing, and helping others and spreading the message. But that's not my whole life, dude. Right. And if I stay stuck in this mindset, I'm an addict, and I keep rapping about it, it's like, it gets kind of old, dude. I need to find a new way to spread the message. And so at this point now, I'm like going deep within and shit, man, digging up a lot of my childhood shit, dealing with stuff that is just an extension of me getting clean in the first place. It's just now I'm at a different point. I've gone deeper, and had so much shit happen to me in the last 6-7 years that now I'm sharing that. But you'll never not know that I'm in recovery. Even on Instagram, it says I put my clean time in my description of me, just because I want people to know. Like, if you need to reach out to somebody who's stayed clean for this amount of time and don't know how I did it, DM me. I answer every DM I get, every message about recovery. So yeah, man.
Yeah, I definitely heroin was my drug of choice, but like you said, it didn't matter what the fuck you put in front of me. If you put something in front of my face, I'm like, it's gonna fuck me up. All right, give it, and I didn't question. So seeing somebody that I had admired just through your music, right, was huge for me. I was like, fuck, dude, if he can do it, I can do it. That was my thinking, because like I didn't know anybody that got clean off of heroin. I mean, I have friends that are still doing it, and I'm coming up on 8 years, man. You know, so like that's
amazing.
Yeah, so that's fucked up to think that, like, you know, it's rare. It is rare when people recover from this, because I mean, I could have been dead too. You know, I'm lucky that I'm blessed that I'm here. You know, and that I have a beautiful wife. I got a beautiful daughter. You know, like, and I'm just gonna say it right here and right now. Thank you for being the inspiration to not just myself, but I'm sure to many others that fight this battle on a daily basis, man.
Thank you, bro. Thank you for saying that, man. I mean, nothing feels better than to hear that. It doesn't get old, is what I'm saying.
Yeah.
People say, and it manifested in a couple solo tours I did a few years back for like 80 Hertz 80 Hertz tour I did, and people in Chicago, we were performing, and somebody threw something on stage, and I looked, and it was a fucking key tag, and it was like, 6 months clean key tag, and I'm like, who threw this? And somebody raised their hand. I'm like, yeah. So after that show, I had like 5 people come up and hug me and say, I have a year clean, and you are big part of my inspiration and all that. I'm just like, wow. I used to have people throw drugs on the stage, weed, joints. People still do that when they don't know. And I'm just like, thank you. And I just hand it to somebody that would get use out of it. Because with weed, I honestly don't have a negative feeling about it. I can't do it. I wish I could just smoke a joint on Saturdays. Shit don't work. That don't fly for me. There is no just this, you know what I'm saying? For us, I should say.
Yeah.
So it feels really good when that all changes, and then you have people saying the things you just said to me. It's like, feels great. It feels like I'm doing something right. You know what I mean?
Yeah, for sure, dude.
Which is why I never want to not talk about it completely in my music, but I'm not going to dedicate 4 songs specifically you know what it is? It's telling my story of using and how I got clean. I'm like, it's good for when you're sharing in a meeting. Sometimes people want to clarify and identify, but as far as music goes, it's a different thing. I found myself writing about it and being like, no. It's not. It doesn't matter that it's an important message. I'm not going to say the same shit over and over and over and over.
I was going to start talking about your painting, but let's get into your art. You're illustrating. We'll get into that right after I ask this question, because I don't want to forget. Mr. President, the song with Grouch, you and him did. I keep listening to that song, and that shit is fucking crazy. How relevant it still is.
So sad.
It's sad. I'm not trying to like laugh that it's relevant, but like and like there's that line too where he's pumping black gold into your veins like it's heroin. So like that particular line has always like resonated because of my addiction, But I've had that album on repeat in my car for like the last month or so, And how do you feel about that topic? Like, would you guys ever like do like a redo of that song? Like, you know what I'm saying? Like a newer version of that song. Have you ever been inspired? Have you thought about that? Because I'm just curious, because it trips me out when I listen to that song from beginning to end.
I would never be against it. I just don't. I made a song. Just the way I write personally is more abstract, more metaphorical. I don't write the same as Grouch. Grouch is much more straightforward with the way he writes. And that song, I made the beat, but he came up with the topic. He wrote the chorus, he wrote his verse, and then I wrote my verse.
Yeah.
And that president and this president, although they're similar, this one is it's just a whole nother fucking ball of wax, dude. Like, I almost don't want to write about that motherfucker. Like, I don't want to even dedicate a song to that. But I definitely could see. What's funny is I wish we had that instrumental, dude. We don't even. Maybe if I dug deep, I could find it. Maybe, but if we had that beat, I would want to perform that now.
Yeah.
The song is perfect to perform because, like you said, it's still relevant, even though it's not directly about this president. But never say never on making a part 2 to that, for sure.
All right. I mean, I don't blame you not wanting to talk about fucking Trump, dude. I can't stand his fucking ass either. What he's done in the fucking 4 years that he's been in office is nothing short of disgusting, I don't know how else to put it. It's a fucking shame that he got put into the White House. But let's jump back. Let's jump into your art. We don't need to talk about negative shit. So You said it's been in the last, I think you said like 10 years. Is that
Yeah.
right? When you started illustrating again? So how does that differ when you're getting doing that creative outlet as opposed to writing music? Like what about that is like therapeutic to you? Because I know that art is therapeutic, right?
Oh
And
hell
like
yeah.
you can definitely see emotions and feeling in your art. So how does that differ than writing or performing?
Well, out of all the mediums of art that I enjoy, writing is is the least meditative because I'm unless sometimes you're just writing and it's just pouring through you and the words are just coming. I'm like, God, this is fucking easy. I don't know what's happening. That is great. I love when that happens. It's basically like you're channeling. But sometimes you gotta like put in some work. You gotta you're going over the same shit over and over. You're thinking of the next line. Um but art, like for instance, that lion, once I get the sketch and the outline, then I start doing the details. All that hair work where I'm like doing these lines and that is totally meditative. I'm not thinking about shit at all.
Mm-hmm.
Brain is off. Sometimes I'll have something playing in the background, music or even old movies playing, whatever. So drawing is highly meditative and producing is highly meditative for me. I don't think at all when I'm making beats. I'm just creating. Writing is much different to me. Uh, but drawing, although it takes its toll on my body, because I start off like this and I end up like, and like bent over and I'm just like, fuck, it fucks me up. The older I get, dude, like this, it hurts me to spend hours drawing. I gotta, I swear I try to like pay attention to my body while I'm doing it, but it's painful, man.
Especially I don't know, has with the state of the country, kind of talking about what we were just talking about, has that affected your creativity at all? Has that weighed down on you at all? Because I know, like, I personally, right, like that's why I started the YouTube. I only had a site where I was writing,
Right.
articles or whatever, but I had to find something else to do. And talking to, creators in the comic book industry, talking now to you, has helped kind of keep me out of the negative that's surrounding the world right now. How has that affected you?
It's a good question because once the George Floyd video surfaced and all that began, I had a super heavy, like a lot of us, any decent person with a heart that has compassion felt a huge blanket just pour over them of sorrow and just anger and all the feelings. And my creativity went dead. I had no desire to be in this room recording, making beats, drawing. I was dead for a while. Like I've gone through so many different emotional kind of tracks during this last month and a half that just now in the last couple weeks, I finally started feeling it again. So I've been in here making a beat every day, like one or two beats every day. I'm drawing again. Um, it's been really hard to write. Like I had a verse that somebody paid me for, and it took me a month to get to it. And I'm usually like, you pay me, and I'm bam done. Next day, like here it is. But for this dude, it took me fucking month and a half to write the words. I couldn't just didn't have it in me. And I think that's totally normal. While other people may just have fire to create something having to do with all the energy happening around us. But for me, I was pretty dead, creatively dead for a while.
And when you get in these modes, because I'm sure, I mean, life has its ups and downs, right? So it's never all sunshine and roses, especially for people like us, in recovery, where we can quickly go into that mindset of like, you know, we future trip. I don't know. I future trip sometimes. I'm like, well, what if this happens? What if that happens? And like nothing's happened yet, right? How do you get yourself out of these creative ruts, I guess you could call them?
I've learned over the years to never force it. So if I'm not feeling it, I just don't enter the room, dude. I just don't.
Mm-hmm.
So if I'm not feeling that, then how do I get out of it? Shit. I've been every morning, dude, I wake up, I do a small meditation, I get up, go to the living room, make tea, sit on this chair, pull out a journal. And I've been journaling solidly since June of last year, every day, every morning. That has been huge for me, dude. Like crucial. Even when I don't have shit to really talk about, I still will just journal that out. I really don't have shit to talk about this morning, but it's good to be here. You know, I'm grateful, blah, blah, blah. But it's helped me process so much stuff. Like, so during this whole thing, I'm there writing. And if something has me stuck or not wanting to be in here, that means I have some work to do to me. Because when I'm in a good space, I'm never not wanting to be making a beat, drawing, or anything. I'm always have juice and fire to do that. So if I don't have it, something is going on and I need to write about it and try and get it out and understand what's happening to me. So it's a time for self-reflection and work whenever I don't feel the motivation to create.
And what are some of the biggest issues that you have to deal with as an artist?
Just, you mean like general hardships from as an artist? But
Yeah, general hardships, because I mean you're a professional, right? I mean that's how you make your living. It's not like this is a side thing, you know what I mean?
bro,
Like you are.
I'll tell you right now, like last year, 2009, 2020 has been a fucking shit show, as we all know.
Yeah, you're telling me, dude.
2019 was the beginning of my shit show. It didn't start in 2020. In June last year, all of a sudden, I had this vertigo hit me. Like I'd never experienced vertigo before. I heard about it, but then it hit me. And it was the most frightening, horrible shit I'd ever felt, being out of control in your own body, like spinning, and you're just like, God help me. Like, and I don't want to take you down that whole rabbit hole of what happened, but it turned into from June to now, which is over a year later, and some of the symptoms that came about from that initial thing are still there for me. But it was like a spiritual kick in the ass moment. I was pushed off a cliff by the universe, so to speak. I was stuck in some way. And so the universe was like, I got you, pop, here, you'll fall off this mountain. And that's happened to me quite a few times. I could pick out moments in my life when that happened to me. And something big happened that forced me to change and look at things in a different way, right? Mm-hmm. So I tell you that to say that I was not performing. I was not putting out new music during this section of last year. And so how am I fucking surviving? Like, I wasn't drawing because my vision was fucked up, Ryan. Like, from the vertigo, you know, I got better, but I couldn't draw. I couldn't look at a computer screen. I couldn't do anything, dude. And the thing that kept me alive, that I'm so grateful for and paid my bills, my necessary bills, my rent, some food, my car note, whatever, was Patreon, dude. Patreon I started it 2.5 years ago, and I literally was thinking about it. I'm like, I gotta start my Patreon. And I woke up out of a dead sleep a little bit before my birthday of 2019. Sorry, 17. 18? Yeah, 18. Sorry, 2018. I sat up in bed. I'm like, I need to start it now. Like I was procrastinating a little bit. And so I started it. It coincided with me dropping Last House on the Block, which was my last solo album. And dude, I'd be in huge trouble without the support that I get on Patreon. Everyone stayed with me through 2019. Some people drop off, it's just natural, but the majority of people knew what was happening because I shared it with them. Like, I'm going through some shit, guys, and kind of sharing all along the path. But I wasn't like giving what I usually give. I wasn't doing my podcast, wasn't doing drawing. I had to go back and use some old drawings to give them. And it was rough, and people stayed with me. So then 2020 comes, and then it's just like, nope, you're not performing probably till the end of 2021, dude. So now you have the only income I have, Ryan, is Patreon, and anyone who's paid me to do verses or buys beats, or anyone buying my art. And man, God has just been, whenever I get to a point where I'm like, dude, what am I gonna do? My money is super low right now. Like, boom, somebody emails me, hey dude, I was wondering if you do a verse for me. I'm like, every time it's like, whenever I really truly need it, I'm manifesting and calling it in, and it comes, man. But my point being, Patreon has been the answer to my hardships. And the hardship of being independent and living off your art is when the economy is all fucked up and everyone is having a hard time, I'm in trouble. And you take away live shows, you take away touring, you take that whole part away, and it's like, wow, dude, it's scary. It gets scary.
Yeah, I love your Patreon. I think Patreon is probably one of the most innovative ways to be able to like stay connected to your favorite artists, especially like maybe underground people, right? And I love, you've done daily meditations, your positive messages that you put out, which are always fucking dope to see, especially when shit's all fucked up in the world. And what has been the most rewarding thing for you besides, obviously it's helped keep you afloat, right? But what has been the most rewarding thing for you starting your Patreon and being able to stay connected with your fans?
Well, I mean, it's the connection to the people that support on Patreon. It's one thing to connect on Instagram or Twitter or some shit like that. Patreon just takes it 10 levels deeper. You know what I'm saying? So the willingness for me to build this family vibe is what I wanted from the beginning. I'm like, it's not going to work unless I make it a family energy, something where people feel really invested in what I'm doing, and that requires me being even more vulnerable and open. And so the relationships with people half of them I've never met, most of them I've never met in person. It's very rewarding. And to do these Manifest Mondays where I'm sharing a lot of deep shit that I'm going through, and people leaving their manifestations and talking about their stuff. And it goes in waves. Sometimes people are really close and commenting and all involved. And then right now, for instance, it's like I'm posting and I'm like, where are you guys? Like, and that's just the ebb and flow of 2020. And in general, like people are going through their own shit in life and they're not on their phone checking in as much. And it's weird. It's just, so the most rewarding part is definitely the deeper connection, I think.
And before I wanted to ask about if you have any upcoming projects that you wanted to talk about. But before we do that, I just wanted to, just for personal, is there any new artists that you're really excited about that maybe you want to, any recommendations that maybe I haven't heard of?
I'm so bad at this because
it's all good.
I never can think of people on just like in the moment, but I also I haven't been checking in on like new shit, like especially when I'm working on my own stuff. I tend to like stray away from hearing other people's shit, which is really kind of silly because I get motivated when I hear dope shit, new stuff.
Mm-hmm.
And I know there's a ton of artists out there. I've really been paying attention to Alchemist and everything he's been dropping lately.
Mm-hmm.
So many artists, like Boldy James is one. You got Conway, who's been around, like all these East Coast kind of dudes that really slow, dope writing, clever writing. A lot of it's kind of dark on the darker side, but I tend to like look past that and I just appreciate it for what it is. And Alchemist production is just ridiculous. It's
That's
so
true.
Fucking sick, man. But there is a ton of music out there, bro. But honestly, I haven't been paying attention. I really haven't.
Okay.
Because I've been kind of buried in here, which will lead us into talking about future projects. Dude, this year, 2020, I had this plan in my head. I'm like, this year, man, I'm going to drop fucking 3 or 4 albums. They're coming. And 2020 happens, and I'm like, nope, that's not happening. One of them is mixed and mastered and been done since last year. And it's an album with my boy DJ Fresh, who has been popping. Like he just kind of took off and he's been working his ass off for years. Very unique producer, dope producer. He did an album with Currency and that shit blew up. It's his highest selling album and a lot of people are on him now. He's blowing up as he should. And we have an album together that is super dope, dude. Like it's super unique, very well mixed and I had Eddie Sancho mix the album and he's an amazing engineer, classic OG dude. And we were planning on putting that out, I think, in July or something. And it's like there hasn't been a point this year where I'm like, I feel comfortable saying this is when we should drop it.
Right.
Because to me, if you drop an album right now, if you're not Run the Jewels or somebody huge like that, you drop an album, it just goes bloop and sinks to the bottom of the ocean. There's too much shit going on socially, fucking the COVID-19 shit. Like, it's like, where does this music fit? It's really waiting for the right moment. And that is really difficult for me, to hold on to a finished album and not put it out. Because part of me is like, it's getting old. It's going to be fucking old by the time. But then the other part of me is like, this shit is brand new to anyone who hears it. And there's nothing about the way I make music that is old and can get stale and moldy, because I make shit that's kind of different. So it has a longer shelf life. Does that make sense? So I'm holding that one. I just started mixing another solo album that I made last year that is just now getting mixed. There's plenty of reasons why, but it's another one of those God shot, universe shot kind of things. Like, it's getting mixed now, and when it's ready to come out, it'll be the perfect time, whenever that is. And that is a solo record produced by this kid, Essie, who's, I'm probably going to pick out the wrong spot, but I think he's from Norway. And he makes like boom bap-esque, kind of inspired by Dilla and Ninth Wonder style boom bap shit.
Yeah.
It'll be the first project I've ever done with those kind of beats full way through. I'm rapping a lot slower, a lot more so you understand what I'm saying, and I fucking love this album, bro. Like, Grouch told me, he said, I played it for him, and he's like, bro, for some reason he thought it would offend me, but he said, don't get mad, but I think this might be one of your best albums and people might really love this the most. I'm like, why would I get mad at that, bro? He's like, cuz it's not your usual shit. It's not what you, I'm like, dude, I know. So I'm super excited about that. I'm just finished mixing and getting mastered a Grand Tapestry EP right now, which is a totally different group that I have that is like the most unique shit that I've ever made. The music is ridiculous. So really excited about that. That will probably be the first thing that comes out. And then there's the Grouch Eligh album, dude. That is like 2 songs away from being done mixed. It's 90% mixed. The album cover's done. The album cover's sick. And the album is dope as fuck, dude. Like, we started off not knowing if it was, we're like, let's just mix this and put it out. And then we start mixing it and adding more songs, and we're like, wait a minute, this shit is really dope. So I am really excited. It's like, so that's 4 albums, bro. There is 4 albums of music. I just don't know when they're going to come out. That's the thing.
And when they do, you're probably going to space them out too, right? So it's not, or would you like release them kind of quick?
No, I'd want to space them out, but you just don't know how things are going to happen. And
yeah,
I won't be so anal about it where it's like, oh, Grand Tapestry and Grouch and Eligh are too close. Oh, it's freaking me out. It's like, nah, dude, just let it do what it does. They all feed each other in some way. But yeah, man, that's what I got going music-wise.
Dang, I can't wait to fucking hear those albums, dude. God damn, dude, I need new music, you know? I mean, it's cool playing the same albums over and over again. I don't mind doing that either, but I love new music that I can't like sing along to, you know, like where I have to like listen, because then you're paying attention. It's like using a different part of your brain when you're listening to the music.
For sure.
So before we get out of here, I want to thank you again, you know, for doing this with me. I know this maybe was a weird outlet for me to ask to do a hip hop, you know, interview, but I mean, art is art. You know what I'm saying? I don't think there's no boundaries when it comes to that. I was wondering if you could just, you know, give us some plugs where people that are watching can find you on you know, social media, internet, stuff like that.
Sure. I mean, my main place I'm at is on Instagram, The Real Eligh, at The Real Eligh. And from there, I direct you where I'd really want people to go is patreon.com/Eligh, which is where my Patreon lives, and go check it out and see everything that's going on there. And hopefully you're interested in it and join. But as far as Facebook, I can give a shit about Facebook. I have a Facebook page, but I don't go on it. I really don't like Facebook. Twitter is a nightmare. It's full of like the end of the world. It's Armageddon on Twitter. I'm already feeling that. So it's Instagram and it's Patreon, which is where I really interact with people. But yeah, those are the spots.
All right, dude, that's dope. And I'll have all the links for those for all you guys watching in the comments below. And once again, Eligh, thank you for being here.
Cheers, bro. Thank you for having me, man.